Hi, welcome to episode 59, or maybe it's 58. It's one of those two numbers of awkwardly awesome podcasts. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. I'm a perseverance coach and a professional speaker who ironically has a speech impediment. I specialize in speaking to junior high and high school students about kindness, courage, perseverance, and confidence. Today, I'm excited to have two amazing guests who I'll bring on in a minute. But first, I want to read the bios. And you might be like, dude, Jason, why do you read people's bios? You already talk slow. Why do you go to the effort of reading bios? I think people's bios are so important because it's amazing what my guests have done in their life, and I want to be sure to celebrate that. So I'll read the bios. Probably didn't need you to say that, Trace. Oh well. And as episode 59, just for point of reference. So Pamela Aubrey and Christopher Rausch bring their brilliance together as co-hosts of the podcast Rainbows in Real Life. Pamela Aubrey is the owner of Rising Innergy, INNERGY, a podcast host of two podcasts, a writer, businesswoman, Reiki Master, hot math facilitator, intuitive energy practitioner, and I'm out of breath, but it keeps going. Visionary and a visionary artist. In her career, she had the great pleasure of training and working with some of the world's top mindset coaches and their teams. Well, her early life presented her with many challenges, and she suffered a variety of assaults as an adult. These traumas became the basis for her greatest successes. That's an amazing sentence. Her passion continues to lie in her work as a trauma recovery facilitator, helping others create legacies of freedom, abundance, and miracles. I love that. Christopher Rausch is debatably the world's most effective and impactful, unstoppable, no excuses coach, speaker, workshop facilitator, retreat leader whose life apprenticeship uh, of the victim to victor is nothing short of miraculous and surely inspiring. Today, as an international keynote speaker, Rausch captivates and enthralls audiences with his story and then empowers them to accept what life has presented, embrace change and take action, personally and professionally. His commitment and credibility are indisputable as he so obviously lives his message. People leave awe-inspired and motivated to take action regardless of perceived obstacles. So please help me welcome Pamela Aubrey and Christopher Rausch. Yay!
Oh, thank you.
Excited to be here. Thank you for that warm introduction.
It was fun to read. You're welcome. Thanks for accomplishing a lot in life.
Yeah. You can thank life for that. Life throws us obstacles and opportunities, and we go through them, and we grow through them, and we become the people that we want to be, and then we go out and make the world a better place for who we are and what we do. Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to say, and I think you know as well as anyone how to do that. So it's fun to be here with you talking about these topics.
Thanks, both of you. And this is a perfect segue to my first question for you both. What's something you learned in childhood, when you were a kid, when you were young, childhood, that helps you succeed today? Christopher?
Oh, I get to go first. I was going to say ladies first. What is something from my childhood that I learned that
I want to mix it up a little bit.
Okay. Something I learned from my childhood. Treat women with respect.
That helps you succeed today.
That helps me succeed today. Treat women with respect. I grew up in an abusive household where I saw my mom get beat. And so I grew up knowing and understanding that you got to treat women with respect. But in real answer to your question, what did I learn from my childhood? I learned that we're all the same, no matter what kind of skin color, no matter what kind of background, no matter whatever label you want to put on it. As kids, we don't care. As kids, we love and we care about each other. We go play. We just have fun. We don't judge. It's all about excitement and adventure and curiosity. It's not about blame or anything else. So what I learned from my childhood is to continue that through my entire life, which I did not for a while, but now I do. So it's a massive lesson that we're all the same. We're all going in the same direction. We're all trying to do the same thing. We just have a different way of going about it. But ultimately, I believe in the goodness of people. And that's one of the things I learned from my childhood.
Wow.
Amazing. What did you learn, Pamela?
Well, I mean, your question implies that I've grown up, which I guess I have in some ways. But, I think one of the lessons that I learned from my childhood that I've carried with me is that things aren't always easy, but when you keep going, there's rewards for that. And, I was actually thinking about this earlier today, and I was reminded of a time when I was, I think, probably 5 or 6 years old. And I was really a daddy's girl at that age. Like, the sun just like rose and set around my dad, And I remember on Sundays, he would sometimes walk to church. And so on those Sundays, I would try to be ready to get up early so I could walk to church with him. And it was like a mile walk, which, as a 5-year-old seemed like 10 miles. And I wasn't a very big 5-year-old. But I think what that taught me is that we can do big things, even if we feel small, or we are small. And that I think that lesson has stuck with me unconsciously in many ways.
Speaking of doing big things, you say, you believe strongly in us each knowing our own power. Why is that? Why is that so important?
Yeah, I think it's important because, and to be honest, I don't know that we really in this life fully know or understand our power. But I think that when we're always aware that we probably have more power and do have more power than we think we do, then we're able to do things that we might not otherwise, maybe in a logical or sort of a realistic mindset, think that we could do.
Oh.
I hope that made sense. I'm not sure if I'm communicating, but I think I said what I meant to say.
Makes sense to me. It's beautiful.
I caught myself reading the next question and thinking about weaving the next question, and so you got done, and I'm like, I didn't hear her entire response. I know it was good, but I didn't hear your entire response. Okay, imperfect best. I'm going to try to listen more at the same time.
Listen, you're the interviewer.
What?
That's
you have to
the
listen.
challenge.
You're the interviewer,
yeah. As the host. You have so many things.
We understand, no problem.
We have been there.
So, speaking of your own power, Christopher, why I mean, really, why is it important for us to take responsibility for our lives. I mean, why not just be victims, Christopher? Why not just whine like, Chris, you know,
Oh,
this is wrong, this is wrong. This is okay. I'll quit. I'll let you answer.
stop. You're making my body hurt. Why do
Okay,
we have to
sorry.
take responsibility? Can I swear? No, it's one of my hot buttons right now. I'm so sick and tired of people not taking personal responsibility and accountability for what it is and where they're at in their life. You know, things can happen to us in our childhood and throughout our lives, and we're not responsible for that. That's not our fault, you know. But what I see so many people doing, and what you're saying here, is about that choice between being a victim and a victor. You know, there comes a point where you have to take responsibility and say, that wasn't my fault. However, if I choose to live in that belief system, if I choose to still perpetuate those thoughts and that self-talk with myself, that is my fault. And so many people are trapped in this victim mindset, and they're waiting for somebody to come save them. They're waiting for their dead parents to come back and tell them that they're okay. They're waiting for people to be the people that they wanted them to be, that they'll never be. And that is just a waste of time. You know, you have to take personal accountability and responsibility. I was just in a clubhouse room a few minutes ago, and the lady got into an accident and became a quadriplegic. She took responsibility for herself, and now she can drive and she can do all these things. And she even said, she goes, I wonder why so many people who are able-bodied sit there in this little victim status, like, no, poor me, no. I'm like having littler and littler. Is that a word? I'm having less and less tolerance for people in the victim mindset, because they sit there and say, well, I just don't know, Chris. And I'm like, you know, how do you suppose you would find out? You know, maybe go to Google, maybe go to YouTube, maybe go to the library, you know, maybe take responsibility, take action for yourself to go heal yourself and start getting around the right people and the right situations that will help grow you. Come on. I mean, that victim mindset, that stuff is like, no, you got to take a personal accountability. What do you think, Pam?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that it goes back to the fact that we don't always see what we're capable of. And, you know, often we've taken on the stories that we've been told. We've you know, internalized this terrible programming wherever it's come from, and we've made it our own. And the fact of the matter is 99.9% of the time, none of that programming is really us, right? And so if we could, you know, just have that awareness and really kind of be, you know, really real with ourselves about that and say, what is the stuff that I've been told or that I've taken on as my own that's not my own? And what am I going to do with it? Then we start to make changes.
Yes.
How can energy work help someone open up to a new level of programming?
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's what's so powerful to me about energy work, is that it really does give you avenues to deal with some of that programming in a really constructive way and to do it efficiently, right? I mean, there's great things to be said for mindset, and we can certainly take responsibility and learn what we need to learn, because there is an element of that, no doubt about it. But I think that there's also something to be said for having some tools in our toolbox, and energy work is certainly one of those. And, you know, there's so many different modalities now. I mean, you hardly have an excuse not to have tried at least one or two of them. But, you know, why not go out and try 10 or 20 until you find one that works for you? You know, some are just going to work quicker and better for others than others, right?
Yes, I love that. Why not go out and try 10 or 20 different until we find one that works?
What do you have to
So
lose,
often-
right? What do you have to lose?
Oh, kitty.
Can you hear that?
Hi, baby. What's that?
Can you hear
agree?
that?
She agrees.
He is purring up a storm. He loved your answer. He's like, good answer, Pam. Good answer, Pam.
So often it seems like people, including myself, at times have had the tendency to try one or two things, and if those one or two things didn't work, you say, "Oh, yeah, I tried, you know, but there's really, like you said, Chris, we can go on Google and we can find unlimited options. So we have a lot more than one or two options in life."
It's so true. So I mean, you got to figure out what works for you. You have to go out there and try and experiment. You can't just give up. Well, that didn't work. Or I tried that before 5 years ago. Well, maybe you didn't try hard enough. Maybe you didn't have the right people in your life. Maybe you didn't have a big enough why. For me, the leverage of not having regrets in my life and looking back, the 5 Regrets of the Dying, it's a great book. You can actually go out and Google just the article, and it talks about the number one regret of the dying. The hospice nurse sat with all these people who were dying. And the ultimate regret was that people didn't live the life they wanted to. They lived the life that they thought they had to, based on their parents' input and everything else in society and religion and everything else. So they got to the end of their journey. We're like, I did all these things for all these other people who are now dead. I lived in the fear of judgment of everybody else, and now they're all dead. And now I'm sitting here with nothing but time to sit there and think about all the chances and all the risks that I did not take. So it's incumbent for us to take responsibility and to go live our life and not just exist in it.
And Christopher, what was the toughest part of victimhood for you to personally get over? What's the one thing that kept hanging on for you?
It's 3 letters. 3 letters. It was my mom. My mom. That was the biggest impact of my childhood and the biggest leverage for me to change who I was and where I was going, because for the first 17 years of my life, I was definitely lonely, abandoned, isolated, fearful, scared. I was physically, mentally, spiritually abused by my mom, by people in my neighborhood, by people at school. I didn't have an ounce of self-confidence. And ultimately what I had to do is I had to decide, again, I had to take responsibility at 17 years old after 2 failed suicide attempts. Fortunately, after having a gun put to my head, nearly had my brains blown out because somebody thought I was a racist. I finally had to take the determination that mom is not going to be mom. Mom is not going to show up on a silver horse one day and go, okay, son, now I'm going to be a mom. I had to realize and accept. I had to accept where she was at in her own mental journey and everything else. And I had to decide whether or not I was going to get out of the situation in a pine box or in jail or on my own accord. So ultimately I had to take responsibility, but the God's honest truth is I would not change any of it because it has made the man that I am today. And because the man I am today, I have helped thousands and thousands of people as a coach, as a speaker for over 20 years, sharing my story. I've mentored at-risk kids. I've been a mentor for the Corona Police Department. I've gone back and I've taken everything that I've gone through and grown through and turned it back and made it mean something for somebody else, so that the legacy that I live will say that Christopher had this disadvantaged childhood and everything else, but man, he turned everything around and he created a better world for who he was and what he did. And that's literally my eulogy. So for me, it was my mom. And for me, part of that process was to forgive her and to have empathy for her, that if I had gone through her situations and her journey, might I be like her? Might have I reacted like her? Yes. So I was able to have empathy and forgiveness to say she was doing the best she could with what she had, and I forgive her. And at that moment, it was able for me to process and realize that she was setting me up for this part of my life, that I asked for this in my soul contract to say, hey, listen, I need some challenges. I need to learn some lessons about taking care of Chris first. And those lessons presented themselves, and I chose to rise above them and conquer them.
Did someone help you get to that epiphany, or you just finally got to the point in your own life that you were like, I want something different?
Oh yeah. No, at that point, no one was helping me. No. It was literally the situation where I talked about, where I had the gun put to my head, and I thought I was going to lose my life. And I told the guy to pull the trigger, because at that point I was done. I was done trying to get her attention. I was trying to get her affection. I was trying to do everything for her, and I was ready to go. And so it was ultimately, again, I made that decision, like, okay, I'm going to get out of here in a pine box. I'm going to get out of here going to jail, or I have to stand up for myself, and I have to do what is supremely uncomfortable and tell my mom, I'm sorry, I have to go. And I left her in the motel, but I never left her. I went back and took care of her. Ultimately, she got stronger. And actually, I'm writing a book about that entire story right now.
So you were able to forgive her, and then she got stronger after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I learned about codependency at 17 years old. I didn't know what codependency was, but I started reading the writing on the wall, and I'm like, I feel like her husband. That's what I felt like. I felt like the man of the family. And here I was, 17 years old. I was working 2 jobs. I'm 17. I'm not really dating. I'm out doing drugs and drinking and doing all this other stupid stuff. But as long as I brought the money home, she got to go off and do whatever she wanted to do. So in realizing that I had to be stronger for myself, caused her to be stronger for herself. And that was such a blessing, that I was able to stand up for myself, and that she was able to stand up for herself too.
Wow. I'm thinking of the ripple effect of your decision, how it not only helped you and helped your mom, but has helped thousands of people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. And every time Christopher talks about his story, I just think about the fact that had he not chosen to take responsibility for himself, he wouldn't be in the position to help other people right now. And I think that's what's so powerful is that is the power that we have. You know, going back to what we were talking about in terms of how much power do we really have? Think about how powerful that is. That he was not only able to transform his own life, but now he's helping other people transform their lives because he made that choice.
Was there a moment in your life, Pamela, where you realized, hey, where you have felt like you didn't have much power, and then you suddenly realize the power that was within you? When you
Yes.
suddenly realize your energy?
Yeah, I would actually say that I realized that I was in a place that I could not humanly get myself out of. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I'll tell you, it didn't happen overnight. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, to be completely honest with you. I just knew that it had to happen. And I had the faith that it would happen and that somehow I would figure out how I was going to get myself out of the situation I was in. And as time went on, that's exactly what happened. But had I not made that determination, I would have never gotten out of it. And that's exactly what, that's really what this life comes down to for all of us, is coming to the point of deciding what is it that I really want for my life, and then deciding what we're going to do to get there. And it's not always easy.
But it's always worth it. It's always worth it.
That's always worth it.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but man, is it worth it.
Pamela, you mentioned faith in that equation. Like when you felt so like this isn't where you want to be, how do you cultivate how do you reach for the faith of something different?
I think that is an amazing question. And I think it looks a little bit different for everyone, but I think that we all have that little seed of knowing inside of us, knowing when something isn't right, knowing when things need to change. And when we know that that little seed is just the beginning, then we can start to cultivate it, right? We can start to find ways. You can go to the library and check out books. Like Christopher was saying, you can Google, you can get on YouTube and start watching videos. Whatever it is, your heart's going to guide you, number one, because you deep down know what it is that you really need, and you know what needs to happen. And so when you start really paying attention and walking towards the things that serve you, then you will start making those shifts. But it often is incremental, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And so you really just have to keep going and hang on to that little seed of knowing.
That little seed of knowing. You said in your bio you've had very, very traumatic experiences, and that they have led to your greatest successes.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, most of us, I mean, I don't think there's a person walking this earth who hasn't been through at least one traumatic experience, but many of us have been through many of those. And so to know that we're kind of all in the same boat helps us a little bit to know, okay, I'm not alone in this. Someone else has probably been through this exact same thing at some point. If I can find the information out there from someone who has been where I am, then I can get out of this place.
The information out there. And it's that little seed of knowing and taking incremental steps that that takes you down the road towards success rather than down the road towards victimhood and making excuses.
Exactly.
Excuses, Chris. Excuses. Excuses.
I love excuses. That's why I make so much money. I'm just kidding. I don't feel like it. I love that excuse.
So what do you do with your coaching clients, Chris, when they come to you and you hear excuses coming out of their mouth?
I eviscerate them.
Oh,
I tear them to shreds. No, I ask them simply. I'm like,
of some sort.
No, I asked them. I said, how is that working for you? How is that working for you? Well, it's obviously not working for me. So everybody gets to a breaking point where the pain versus pleasure principle comes in that Tony Robbins talks about so eloquently. The fact that, we do things for one or two reasons: to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. So when you come up with those excuses, all you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot repeatedly. Oh, I don't feel like it. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, I don't know how. Oh, I don't have the money. Oh, whatever it is, it's just about having resources. But ultimately, it's having that big enough why. When you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. And my case in point for this is I've always had a big why ever since coming out of homelessness. But in my early 30s, I was going through a period where I was successful. I achieved egotistical fame and monetary fame and all this other stuff. I was good. And that wasn't when I started realizing, I'm like, is my life really good? Is my life really that good? And of course, God, universe, source opens up that opportunity for you to explore that. And so I went to a funeral and I sat in the back of the funeral. It was for one of my coworkers, and everybody was getting up and eulogizing Anne and saying all these brilliant things and beautiful things that she did that I had no idea about. Like, oh, the little secret presents that were left on our desk. Anne was the one that was doing it. We all thought that HR was doing it. Anne was going out and buying these little things and just sending little trinkets on our desk and all these other things. And I sat there and I thought, Chris, if you died tomorrow, we can all die any second, by the way. If you died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And so I thought about that. And I think that's an important exercise for us all to do. And at that point, I thought, okay, I've accomplished a lot. I'm successful, and all this other stuff. But I thought, 10 or 15 people are going to show up. They're going to bring Coors Light. They're going to bring Miller Genuine Draft. They're going to bring Jack Daniels and Bon Jovi and Motley Crue records. And they're going to talk about all the stupid shit that I used to do. How many times I got drunk, how many times I chased girls, blah, 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 blah. And then, oh yeah, by the way, he was homeless and he got out of it. And I thought, and I knew at that time that's what people would say. And I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, that's not a legacy that I want to live. And again, thinking about the why, I wanted to have more leverage in my life to take more chances and more opportunities and more risks to discover who Chris is and be able to take more risks. So I went home and I wrote my eulogy. And the crux of the eulogy says that Christopher Rausch will have fought for what was right and what was fair. He will have risked for which that mattered. And he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. Now, for me, every single day I get up and I set the intention to use my words and my actions to make the world a better place. And ultimately, every single day I do. Not every day is perfect. Not every day is great. Some days are better. Like yesterday, I impacted a lot of people. I went to bed last night. I literally sat on the edge of my bed and I said out loud, wow, I'm so grateful for these opportunities today and to be able to impact these people, because now they're not going to have as many excuses going forward. But it's really about resourcefulness. People sit there and say they don't have money, they don't have time. But what happens when something comes up? They find a way to make time. They find a way to ask other people for help. But so many people are just out there trying to do it all by themselves, hoping, wishing, and praying that someday something's going to change or somebody's going to show up, and it's just not the case. You have to stop the excuse. You have to analyze the excuse and say, do I want it bad enough? If I don't want it bad enough, then let it go and work on something else.
So there's so much there for us to get into, but if anyone listening has comments or questions, please put them in the chat.
We love questions.
So I it's and this is to both of you. It sounds like there was a success level where that felt like, hey, I'm accomplishing a lot, but then you found a higher success level, or you both have, of really impacting people and leaving the legacy you want to leave. What's the difference between those two success levels? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because I feel like, while I have had successes, I don't know that I feel like that's a stopping point by any means. I mean, I just feel like life is such an evolution, right?
Life is such an evolution.
Yeah. And, you know, so where I can look back at my past and I can say, yeah, certainly that wasn't, you know, the life that I wanted to continue living, and certainly wasn't ultimately the long-term legacy I would want to leave. I can also see, okay, well, in making the changes that I've made, my life has changed astronomically, but it can still change astronomically. Like, I still feel like there's so much room for expansion. And so I don't want to say I don't consider myself successful, because I feel very successful in the things that I've done and the changes that I've made. And yet I feel like there's always so much more. That makes sense.
I take it you don't exactly believe in the concept of a retirement at 65 and kind of quitting and playing golf.
That probably would have made my life a lot easier.
Do you like bingo, Christopher? Is bingo a big game for you?
I love bingo. I love bingo, especially when you're doing it with tequila shots. It's the best. Can't if I can spell it, but I got it. No.
Everyone wants to be in the nursing home with Christopher.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. I'm excited. I got a few years to go, but yeah.
We're going to have a good time in there.
Hell yeah. Wheelchair races, everybody, line up.
Heck yeah.
So on this concept of constantly growing and learning new things throughout life, can you say more about that, Chris?
Yeah, you should always be in a constant state of evolution, constant state of learning. I don't have the stack with me. My show last night, I brought a stack of books. I've literally read 5 books probably in the last month. I've listened to 3 audiobooks in the last month. I'm diving into Will Smith's new book. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly listening. I'm on Clubhouse listening to people. You have to constantly be in a state of curiosity about unfolding whatever it is that we're supposed to be learning on this journey called life. You know, if we run away from the things that hurt us and cause us pain, if we run away from all those things, we're not doing ourselves a service. So ultimately for me, it's uncovering, like, the biggest thing I've been working on the last 5 years is that inner work, the inner work, soul searching, finding out the reason, that I'm not this meat suit, that actually there's a soul inside of here. So I've been reading all these different books, Letting Go, Healing, Surrender Experiment, The Untethered Soul, book after book after book. I just got through reading Inner Wisdom over the weekend. That's the reason why I'm constantly evolving. We don't get to a spot. People sit there and think that, oh, once I'm done with school, I'm done. No. Because every opportunity in life is like chapters in a book, and there's also sections in the book. You're going to get done with one section. Like, I'm done with my corporate section. I was there for 26 years. I'm done with my corporate section. I don't need to learn as much in that area of my life anymore. Now I need to learn more about, okay, what does it mean to get older? What does it mean to be a good parent? What does it mean to leave a legacy? What does it mean to restore some of the inner child that I'm missing? So I'm constantly looking for that. And I think there has to be a thirst for that, especially even in my marriage. Truth be told, I'm reading a book called The ADHD Effect in Marriage. My wife and I both have ADHD, and we realize that a lot of our issues are based on that, based on the defensiveness, based on, okay, he does that because, okay, we always thought that it was we were doing it intentionally, but we weren't. So you have to be in a constant state of thirst to better yourself. And as you better yourself, there comes a price with that sometimes, because you will get better and the people around you will stay the same. Now, here's the thing. Some people will sit there and go, why are you doing that? Why are you going to school? Why are you learning on that? Why do you have a coach? I had somebody recently tell me that their friends were giving them shit because they have a coach. And I'm like, tell your friends to fuck off. Tell your friends to fuck off.
Was it Pamela who was giving them shit?
No. It was somebody that was coaching. And I was just like, what? You got to surround yourself with the right people. So as you continue to learn and become brighter, if the people in the circle of your friends don't support that, then there may become a point in your journey where you have to say, okay, I wish you well. It's not that you're kicking them to the curb, but you want to surround yourself. You don't want to be the brightest person in the room. And that was me. I was always the smartest person in the room, and that made me feel good. Of course, yeah, okay, I've got all the answers. Okay, surround yourself with people who are brighter and smarter. Learn what they're doing if it is that's what you want to do, because success leaves clues, ladies and gentlemen. The information is out there. It's just a matter of you going and searching it out and then acting on it. You have to be aware of the situation. Then you have to accept the situation and without blaming, and go out there and tackle whatever it is that you're going through, because you're going to grow through it. And most especially, you can leave a legacy for your kids or for the people that are watching you, and you can inspire them to get out of their own comfort zones and live their own life.
And if I can add to that, I would love to say that I think with that, we have to be willing to like take on some challenges, right? To have our thinking, to have our beliefs challenged along the way, to know that sometimes the rug might get pulled out from underneath us and we feel like, oh my gosh, am I at ground zero again? Like, you know, and just being okay with that process, because there's not like a perfect process anyway. That is the process.
Oh my gosh, this leads to a very exciting question. Like we all know the rug will probably get pulled out from under us in the future. We've all lived. I mean, 2019 was going along and then 2020 happened. Rugs have a way of going places. What can we do proactively to set ourselves up for success the next time the rug is pulled out from under us? Mm-hmm. And thanks for setting me up to ask that question. I feel really good about asking it. But what can we do proactively?
Christopher, take it.
Oh, you want me to take that one? Well, I want to hear what you have to say as well. But proactively, the first thing that came to my mind, honestly, Jason, and this blows my mind. I've done over, I think, 125 complimentary coaching calls over the last year since the beginning of COVID. And I did it just as my way of giving back, just bringing light to everybody. Whether a coaching relationship turned out of it, that was fine. It was just a matter of me connecting with somebody and letting them know that somebody actually really cared. But as I was doing these interviews, as I was doing these coaching sessions, there was something that became very apparent to me. And Tony Robbins, in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, talked about this. Once you start to see patterns, you'll see repetition, and you'll be able to diagnose and change those patterns quicker, whether it's your own or with other people. And I started seeing this. So I was like, let me just ask the next person that I talked to this question. And so I was asking the person, I could tell there was something going on. And I said, do you love yourself? Yes or no? Well, yeah, I think I do, pretty much. Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, no. Very rarely I got, hell yeah, I do. And I'm like, I could tell that person was going to answer that way. But for the most part, I could see the insecurity. The simple fact, what can we do to prepare ourselves for the next thing? Love ourselves.
What can we do to prepare ourselves for the next thing? Love ourselves. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it starts with self-love, because so many times we put, I find that people will sit there and say, who's the most important person in your life? Well, that's another question I'll ask them. And invariably, probably about 90% of the time, people will say somebody else. And I'm like, okay, how much do you love that person on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being best. 10. Okay, I love that person at 10. Okay, how much do you love yourself? 6. Okay, so you're giving a 6 output to somebody you love as a 10. So you are not doing them justice. You're actually not giving them all of yourself. You're actually not doing your best to be there present with them. So what would it look like? How would it feel? What progress, what outcomes would happen if you started loving yourself more and you raised that to an 8, 9, or a 10? How would that person be impacted? You show up, hey, what's up, blah, blah, and you're feeling good. Oh my God, let's go do this, da, da, da. That energy, that vibrational energy is going to transmit to somebody else. But if we don't have it from within ourselves, we're not going to be able to perform at our best. So the simple act, and I talk to people about this as well. I'm like, how much water do you drink a day? Oh yeah, I don't drink much water. Okay, do you realize how much of your body is comprised of water? So if you are dehydrated, can you imagine that your brain is not going to function at 100%, yes or no? Well, yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so can you imagine that if you're dehydrated, you're not going to feel as strong and energetic, right? Okay, so what happens when we feel that way? We want to go to a short-term gratification. We want to forget that we don't feel very good, so we go to our, whatever it is, Netflix, sex, drugs, alcohol, blah, 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 video games, whatever it might be. We go to that to ignore the fact that we don't feel very well. So just the act of loving on ourselves and then taking care of ourselves, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, getting a little bit of exercise every day, getting a little bit of sunshine every day. All of those little pieces and those little components create compound interest that ultimately result in more confidence. So for me, where I'm at in my journey, trust me, I do not want any more traumatic experience. I don't want any more fucked up shit to happen in my life. But I'm preparing myself now in understanding that things will happen. And what do I need to prepare myself for? I need to have a sense of living in the moment right now and not taking anything for granted, because when things happen, I have to know that that's the time where I'm gonna have to stand tall, stand strong, and set the example for my son, set the example for other people, and get through that just like I've gotten through everything else. And with a sense of adventure and intention that I can use whatever that's going to be to help other people, just like I have in the past. What about you, Pam? What do you think?
That's so good. And it actually, what it made me think of was really this idea that not only do we need to really love ourselves, but we need to understand who we really are, what we really are, that we are actually made of the substance of love. Ooh, I get excited when I talk about this, right? Mm-hmm. Like there are times I just envision my light as being like every cell in my body as just being cells of light and love, right? Because that's who we really are. When we come here to this planet, that's who we really are. All the things that happen to us are just the layers on top that become the programming. But when you were talking, it reminded me of a couple of years ago when I was writing a card deck. And Jason and I were talking about this earlier. And, these messages were given to me. And one of the messages was, I am love. So I'm a person who needs reminders. Like I have to have some way to remind myself of something. And so cards are an easy way for me. It's something I can carry around with me, or I can have them in front of me on my desk or what have you, right? It's very simple and straightforward. But this is what popped into my head while you were talking. And I actually want to share it with the audience today because this is such a powerful message. And I think people need to hear it. And so this message says, I am love. That is the title. And it says, there is nothing which hasn't been made available to you, and nothing you cannot possess and also give. And it is in the giving you will see what you have received. You cannot separate the two. And when you see that the value you give is equivalent to what you receive, you will understand this. When you value yourself as the magnificent creation you are, you then understand what is already yours and will share without limits.
Oh my gosh.
And what I love so much,
because that ties in so well to what Chris, you two work brilliantly together.
Thank you.
We think we're a pretty good team.
Rainbows in real life, baby. Guess which one who the rainbow is?
Even if it wasn't our idea originally, it might have been. Well, anyway.
So how did Rainbows in Real Life, how did that title come to you?
Yeah, well, actually, originally...
I haven't even heard this yet. All right, let's get into that one.
Yeah. Originally, and you may remember this, Christopher. Originally, I thought I wanted to title the show Rainbow Connection, the Rainbow Connection. And we had a little bit of debate over whether people would really understand the title and if it would really convey the message that we wanted it to. And so as we sat with it, Christopher actually said, well, what about something like Rainbows and Real Talk or something like that? And I was like, ooh, I like that. Yeah. And so we played with it a little and it was like Rainbows in Real Life. And so that's how it was born.
No unicorns were hurt in the process of that.
More about the philosophy behind rainbows and
I'll let Christopher speak to it. Yeah, he can tell that part.
Quite an image. I mean, they seem like contradictory terms almost, but how do they work together?
That's what I love. I love that juxtaposition, of having two opposites actually create a positive. There are rainbows in life. You can see them after it rains. You can see there's rainbows. There's rainbows in the fact my cat is sitting in front of me. That's a rainbow. I have this beautiful animal right in front of me. There's a rainbow. I can see that's a rainbow. But there's also real life. There's bills to pay. There's conversations to be had. There's confrontations to get through. There's idiots out in the world that we don't agree with. That's the real life. So the point of the show is really to bring around the awareness that in moments, what you can do is you can focus on gratitude. You can choose your focus to be gratitude. You can choose to be grateful for the situation that you're in, because, I often talk to people, if you woke up tomorrow and you couldn't see, or you were paralyzed or something like that, would the issues and the problems that you have today still matter? They're like, no. I'm like, so be grateful, be gratitude, because there's so many rainbow moments around us, but we're often in our heads thinking about the past. Oh man, I wish this would have happened. I wish I would have happened. I should have done this. That person did this. Or we're way off in the future. And that was me. I was mostly off in the future. I was always planning A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I was constantly not in the moment, because I was like, okay, what strategy do I have to do to become more successful? How do I make more money? How do I get another promotion? How do I impact more people? I was never in the moment. So the rainbows in real life is the fact that we have to stop and really see the rainbows in our life. And also, to your point with the question that you asked, we also have to prepare ourselves to what's the next aspect of real life, and not to only live in just the rainbows, because some people just, everything's just nice and and some people live in real life and think there's no rainbows. So that union really brings about what the meaning of life is for us. Did I do a good job?
What would you say to someone who just tries to get over their past, but just continues to be upset by something that has happened years ago?
I say good luck with that. Until you choose differently, that's the outcome you're going to get. But if they're interested in changing the outcome, then I'm there to serve them. But I'm so tired of people sitting there saying, I want to change. I want to change. I have, God's honest truth. I have people that follow me on Facebook. Oh, Chris, I wish I could coach with you. I wish I had enough money. And I see their posts and I'm like, they're for the last 2 years, their posts have been the same thing. I'm like, no, you don't. You are stuck in victim status because it's convenient for you, because all the people around you go, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'll take care of you. You poor thing. Yeah. That's the reason why you're not successful and happy. That's the reason why you don't have a man or a woman. No. You have to decide that you're done and start getting around the other people. Take responsibility. Like we said at the beginning of the show, you have to take responsibility. You have to stand up and say, this is my life. I choose to live it in accordance with the things that are most important to me. What are my values? When's the last time we sat down and we wrote down what our values are? We sit there and we go through life and we tolerate so much. But the truth of the fact is we don't have to tolerate as much as we think we have to. And when we let go of that baggage, when we drop some of that stuff, when we surrender those old beliefs and the things that aren't working for us, man, it's amazing what opens up for us, and the opportunities and the people and the relationships and the moments that you get to have. Man, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Speaking of energy, it's hard to do both, isn't it? To live in the past and go forward at the same time.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So many people are doing that. They're a little bit here, they're a little bit here. It's like, if you're not in the moment, you're not truly living, you're just existing. And you're hoping, again, I go back to it. So many people are playing the someday game. Oh, someday when this. I just heard about it from somebody, I can't mention names, but they said, oh, we're going to get a divorce in 3 years after the kids are out of school. If you're not happy right now, you get divorced right now. Show your kids this is how you have an amicable divorce. Show your kids this is how you have conversations. Show your kids how you still love one another, but you're not in love with each other. Really? You're just okay. That makes a lot of sense. And then when your daughter 10 years down the road is in an abusive relationship, she's going to go, well, mom stayed there for another 3 years, so maybe I'll give it another 3 years. Maybe I'll give it 5 years. It's asinine how many people sit there and do that stuff. It's like, things are going to be difficult. Things are going to be challenging. Things are going to cause pain. But through that, if you choose to, you will grow from that, and you will learn your lessons, and you will move on to the next relationship and the next thing, and you will learn, and you'll continue to learn. It's part of life.
I think
no Anne and Veronica.
No.
Say what?
They just said hey, so I waved.
Oh, what's up, Aaron and Veronica? What's up?
Everyone's connected, so I just didn't know. A rough segue to this, but somehow please make it tie in, Pamela. So your a new book you're in just came out. Tell us about that.
Yeah,
And
so
that tie in with Chris's guitars.
it actually ties in perfectly. As a matter of fact, that segue was sensational. The name of the book is Overcoming Heart Blocks. And so, of course, going back to what I was saying before, we've all been through those traumatic experiences, and we all have some work to do, right? to clear out the energies around that. And there's a wealth of stories in this book from people who have done that. So if you're looking for a resource right now, you can literally get it for free with Kindle Unlimited. It's $0, and go on there and get the free trial for 14 days or what have you. It's a quick, easy read, and you will have literally just a laundry list of ideas for ways to start moving forward. And, going back to what Christopher was just saying, this idea that we really do. I mean, we ultimately, when we're making a choice around something like this, we have to think about what is the outcome that I really want? And then what am I willing to do to get it? And that's how we gauge how much we really want something, right? If we're not really willing to do what it takes to get it, then we probably don't really want it. And then we need to really think about, then what is it that I really do want, right? And I think that ultimately is at the heart of a lot of these conversations that we have to have with ourselves. And they're not necessarily rainbows, those conversations. They can be very real life.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, Overcoming Heart Blocks. And again, it's on Amazon. You can get it for practically free right now.
So if I were to summarize what you've both been saying for the last 50 minutes, you both are saying you believe that constantly complaining is a very powerful solution to life.
Absolutely.
That will definitely get you what you want.
It will. Go for
it. Or not.
We've been kind of talking about the work of growing and healing and getting to new places. Where does fun and joy and hobbies come into this conversation?
Hobbies? I mean, they're massive. They're important. You gotta have hobbies. You gotta have things to break away from your daily routine. I mean, it's important to go pursue your interests and have your own me time. So many people work so hard that they never have any me time. How can you recharge? How can you have that moment of silence? The book Think and Grow Rich. It's so funny because I've heard people talk about this. I can't take responsibility for it, but in the title it says think. But how many times do we sit quietly and really think? I do it more now than I ever did. But before I didn't think. I was like, I just reaction, okay, I just got to do this. But just stopping and just being able to have that downtime for yourself, being able to take a 1 or 2 day road trip or just do something for yourself, like getting out in the mountains or whatever, just being good to yourself, and that's really what it's about is treating yourself with honor and respect and love. And, for me, I will kid you not, I wrote down on this piece of paper, PlayStation. I have a PlayStation. I'm like, I got to put my PlayStation back here in my studio and play it with my son. I don't play enough video games. So I thought there and thought about it. But, having that opportunity, so many people sit there and say they don't have time, and they go through their entire life not really treating themselves and having that ability to explore what it is that they want to do. And for me, this is the key. When I go do my hobbies, that's when I do my best thinking, because I'm not focused on the thinking. It just comes to me. Like whether you're in the shower or you're driving or doing something, I'm doing a model with my son. I'm like, ooh, I have to do that. And I sit there and I record it in my watch and I go back to what I was doing. So massively important. What about you, Pam? What do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, sometimes I think those are the very best things we can do for self-care and to help ourselves out of a bad place. I mean, it can be the difference between us being stuck and getting unstuck. So I think it's hugely important. In fact, I was literally sending Christopher a message before we came on here today saying, I've had to be more aware of how I'm going to do some of these things because I haven't been doing them as much as I've needed to. And while I've taken some time recently to do it, it hasn't been enough. And I've come to this awareness of, wait a second, these are things that are really feeding me. So these need to be a bigger part of my experience.
And this goes back to, Chris, what you were saying about loving ourselves at a 6 versus loving ourselves at a 10. And it sounds like you noticed, Pamela, that you weren't taking enough time to do what will really fill you up, and so you're looking at that, and then you're readjusting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're constantly in that process, right? We're always in a place where we can probably shift a little something and do it better. And that's part of the fun too, right? I mean, that's kind of what keeps life exciting and just joyful.
Speaking of healthcare and joy, it's just a perfect time to ask this. Like, what if someone doesn't know much about Reiki but has heard it and is considering it? What are the just a few basics of what they should know?
Sure, yeah. So I think a good way to think about Reiki, and this is really kind of a very fundamental explanation, but you can think of it similar to, say, like prayer healing, or historically, throughout the course of time, there has been really a tradition, a human tradition, to actually lay hands on people for healing and allow, the power of source or God or whatever you want to call it, that healing power of love to come through to another person. And you'll see this fairly often actually in some Christian circles, right? Where people will come and pray with someone and they will all lay their hands on them. This has been a long-standing human tradition. Reiki is really born out of that very same concept. And it's just the idea that we are vessels, that we can transfer this healing energy to other people. And, if you've studied Reiki a little bit, or you've become, say, a Reiki Master, then you just have attuned yourself so that you can be more available to allow that energy to flow through you.
I'm glad I asked, Pamela. That's a beautiful explanation.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked too, because it's actually a question that I get asked fairly often, because even though the word is commonly known, people don't really understand what it is.
Last question for both of you. We could talk for hours on this stuff. It's so fun, but so my one of the central ideas I talk about is the power of doing our imperfect best. And what I mean by that is we have a vision of the best we want our lives to be. Then when imperfections come up, we use the information, that learning, to move forward instead of to stop or go backwards. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Pamela?
I love this question. I actually feel like pretty much every day of my life is me trying to do my imperfect best. I really think it's just us doing our best and knowing at the end of the day that we did our best, and that there really isn't a perfect, that whatever, thing has been presented to us as perfection or success or whatever, that really those are just ideas that have been created and then sort of fed to us, right? The real success is us becoming the best version of us.
The real success is us becoming the best version of ourselves. Nice. Beautiful. How about you, Chris?
Wow,
Is it just a sissy tone that you don't want to even talk about?
No. Our imperfect best, that's the thing. That's the thing about life, is we think about life in terms of perfection or imperfection. How about it is what it is? But the most important word that I want to talk about in what that question has is best, right? And I have a situation where, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I came home and I was putting my keys and my wallet up on my dresser. And I thought to myself, well, I did the best I could today. I can't remember what the situation was, but I said to myself, I did the best I could. And I sat there and I stopped, because, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to do is we need to clarify the meaning in the words. That's why I was glad that you talked about Reiki, because when we sit there and we examine, what is our best? What is hard? People sit there and say, Chris, it's so hard. I'm like, describe to me what hard is. We arbitrarily use a word to say, oh, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning is hard. Okay, explain to me why that is hard. What is your definition of hard? Well, I'm just not a morning person. Okay, who is? Who jumps up at 5 o'clock? Yay! Of course, there's some individuals out there, because depending on your chrono clock, you may be more of a morning person or a night person or lion, wolf, whatever the animal thing they talk about. But essentially, it's not hard. When you think about what your best is, I was using the example the other day. Somebody said, we're talking about money. And I said, could you raise $10,000 in a week? And it can't be illegal or immoral or unethical. I'm like, $10,000 in a week, Chris, if I could do that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. They were kind of giving me all these excuses. I'm like, yeah, 10 grand's a lot of money. I said, do you have kids? I said, yes. And I said, how old are your kids? 6 and 8. And I said, okay, if somebody had a gun, a 9mm gun, fully loaded to your daughter's head, and said, you need to make $10,000, you need to go find $10,000 in a week, and it can't be illegal, immoral, unethical, would you be able to do it? Yes or no? Yes. That's your best. We don't push ourselves enough. We don't challenge ourselves enough. We say we did the best we could, and that's bullshit. We say we're going to try. Try. Really? Let's try. You're either going to do it or you're not. Make a commitment. Make a promise to yourself. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to try to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because I want to be healthy. Why? Because I want to be here when my kids have kids. Why? Because I don't want to spend my life in a hospital. Why? Because I don't want to be on 20 fucking medications. Why? You either pay now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're either going to pay now or you pay later. So when you decide you're going to stand up and put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on, and do your best and go out there and push yourself, guess what happens? You feel adrenaline, you feel pumped, you feel like success because you've done things that you haven't done before. That's the challenge of living. That's the opportunity of living, is each and every day. What is my best? I'm going to be 53 years old in February. I'm already thinking like, okay, and I've done this before. I do periodic episodes, but I'm like, why not every single birthday as I get older, get in better shape? Right. And I remember reading this in a Men's Health magazine years and years and years ago. This guy was like 80 years old. And he says, every year on my birthday, I add a pull-up to my regimen.
Yes.
So he's like 81. I'm going to do 81 pull-ups. And I'm like, holy shit. You think as you get older, you relax? He's like, no. So again, it goes back to pay now or pay later, and I see it goes back again to regrets. It all ties together. If you don't want to have regrets later in life, I have a friend of mine, God's honest truth, he's not going to watch this. I know that. He's not really a friend. My you want to talk about challenges. It's my ex-wife's boyfriend, who used to be my best friend. But he's a year and a half older, 2 years older than me. He's on 20 different medications. He is morbidly obese. He's unhealthy. I don't think he's going to make it till 60. He used to be in way better shape than I am. And it saddens me. Both of them sadden me because I just got this feeling, and it makes me emotional. I have this feeling they're not going to be around as long as I would love them to be. Irrespective, I really don't care for them. But at the same time, I don't want to see people do that. And people are doing that every single day. They're putting shit in their mouth that they don't understand. Like, oh yeah, I'm fine right now. I've seen so many people, because my friends are getting older, like, oh, Chris, yeah, all those donuts and everything, I'm pre-diabetic. I'm like, good for you. Yeah, what are you going to change? Well, I'm trying to cut out sugar. I'm to the point now, I'm like, well, good luck. If you're trying to cut out sugar, good luck. You either just don't do it or you do it, So, your imperfect best is really challenging yourself every day when you get up to say, you know what, I'm going to do a little bit better today. I'm going to listen a little bit more effectively today. I'm going to work out a little bit harder today. I'm going to drink a little bit more water today. I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm going for to create my legacy. I'm going to do a little bit more today. Why? Because you get to. Gratitude. You're welcome.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a little bit more each day. Why? Because I get to. That's brilliant. I mean, people talk about dropping truth bombs, and you've both been truth bombing all for this hour. Thanks so much for being both of you. Thanks for being the journeys you are on. Thanks for making the decisions to really show up in life and to grow. So inspiring. How can people reach out to you? That's probably important.
Come find us on Rainbows in Real Life. You can come to our page and find us. You can come to either one of our profiles. I can speak for myself, Pamela Aubrey on Facebook, at Real Pamela Aubrey on Instagram. Christopher?
On Instagram, at Christopher Rausch. Yeah, best place to get a hold of me is www.christopherrausch.com, RAUSCH, christopherrausch.com. It's got all my social, all my stuff going on there, all my shows, everything. Go check it out, please. Let me know how I can help you guys.
I hope you all type fast because I don't type that fast. So find them based on what they just said. Well, thanks you so much, Pamela and Christopher.
Thank you.
It's our privilege, man. Thank you for having us on. You were on our show, so yeah, appreciate the opportunity to come back on here and jam in conversation with you again, man. Appreciate you and mad respect to you, man.
Thank you. I loved being on Rainbows in real life this summer. It was so great.
We're going to have you back. It's so much fun every time we get to talk to you. So I can't wait to do this again.
Yay. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. Your time is valuable. Thanks for spending some of it with us. And with that,